In this video, I'm going to show you why chasing the highest nightly rate is one of the biggest mistakes Airbnb hosts make, what actually determines profit in the real world, and why properties with low rates often earn more. In case we haven't met, I'm Ryan Luke. I used to operate over 450 tourist Airbnbs, consistently adjusting pricing, competing on discounts, and chasing short weekend bookings just to stay occupied. If you are an Airbnb host, I'm pretty sure you feel my pain. So today I run a much calmer 61 unit model that doesn't rely on dynamic pricing, constant tweaks, or daily stress. So let's get into it. For me, I discovered the contractor market in about 2022, 2023. And the main thing is that they book for longer. So with the tourists, you're constantly hustling for 2 night stays. You're banking on the weekends, bringing in, maybe double premiums. And then you're crossing your fingers that something happens through the weeks. Whereas with the contractors, they just stay for longer because they're there for a longer period of time and they need what I call a home away from home, which is kind of what we aim to provide. Now, also, if you know anything about building, anything about construction, everything overruns. So when you get a stay from, or when you get a booking from a contractor and they book for 4 months, 7 months, 9 months, whatever it might be, you know that that's going to actually be, a 12-month booking or a 14-month booking. We've had some now like overrun at least 6 to 8 months on the project timescale, which is great for us because they're in the property, they like it, it works for them, it gives them everything that they need. So they obviously just, can we have another month? Can we have another month? Can we have another month? And that is the best part of the business, and it makes it so much easier to manage. Now, for those that are aware, or maybe you're not aware, but I'm about to tell you, is also if you're VAT registered, which, if you're scaling a portfolio, it doesn't take long to hit the VAT threshold. Any stays over 28 days have a reduced VAT rule. So it means that your VAT liability will actually reduce. Whereas when you're constantly turning the property over every 2 to 3 days at scale, you're paying effectively 20% of your profit away to the VAT man because in this business, there isn't that much input VAT to offset the VAT on the revenue that you will earn. And that can be a large chunk of money. I know before I switched to this model and like purely doubled down and focused only on hosting contractors, my VAT bills used to be huge, especially when I was running, 450 units all on the tourist model. The VAT bills were absolutely astronomical and we were literally giving away profit. And by just switching the guest type, we've been able to massively reduce that VAT bill down. Now, also on top of that, like I mentioned earlier, I no longer use dynamic pricing, which is just one of the software costs that we've managed to get rid of. I used to have, cleaning apps. We had dynamic pricing apps. We had all sorts of different softwares that we tried and tested to, make the guest experience better, to make the behind the scenes operations smoother and calmer for the staff that were, operating. And I've been able to get rid of all of those softwares. And the only thing that we have now running is a channel manager. I use Uplisting. I've linked that in the description should you want to check that out. I've used it for 5 years. I think it ticks all the boxes and it just makes life easy. But more at the point, it actually reduces the cost because I'm not having to pay per property for dynamic pricing tools and all these other software costs. So again, adding more profit into the business without really having to do much more. We also save massively on the cleaning and the linen. Now, with the Airbnb model, we were obviously every 2 to 3 days going in and cleaning the property, which increases the costs. Whereas the contractors, we typically agree every 10 days we'll go in, change the linen, clean the property. So we're doing 2 to 3 cleans a month, whereas before we were probably doing something like 12 to 15. Now, even that in itself, you times that by a portfolio of properties, you times it by 12 months of the year, it's an astronomical saving. And the other upside of the guest switch is the maintenance. So I used to have a lot more maintenance staff with vans on roads, driving around the place, trying to fix stuff constantly because of bad guests, because of disrespectful guests, because of drunk guests. If you're an Airbnb host, you'll understand the pain. Weekend parties, you just dread that Sunday phone call that police were called out last night. The house has been trashed, and I think if you host long enough as an Airbnb tourist host, you will experience that. So for me, the maintenance, we were able to bring the cost right down because these guys are. I'm not saying like no one damages properties because of course they do, and contractors can still misbehave. They can still have a few too many beers and so on and so forth. But their main purpose of being in that property is to actually work. So 95% of the time, they come in, they get their shower, they, go to sleep. They then, get up the next day, have their breakfast, go to work, and repeat that process until their time off. And then when they've got their time off, they go home, and then they come back to the property and they repeat that process again. So the wear and tear on the properties and the maintenance from disrespectful guests has like massively reduced. Again, putting profit back into the till. What we also have is a saving on the heating and the electric. Um, we have a fair usage policy in all of our contracts. So if we do a long-term agreement for say 10 to 15 months, um, and they have, potentially even squeezed us down on the rates, but regardless of whether we get a good rate or they've squeezed us down, I want to make sure that they are not just, whacking the heating up to 30°C in the middle of December, leaving the windows open and, buggering off to work. So I have learned the hard way where we've had, we thought we were making a lot of money. We had long contracts. And this was in the early days of, switching to the contractor model. And then all of a sudden, the quarterly heating bill comes in and we realize we've been spending £1,000 a month on heating. So, couple of ways that we do it is one, the Hive systems, and combat that with, controlling them on our phones, but they can be overridden, and it can become a bit of a war with the guests. But the easiest way to do it is put a fair usage policy in the contract, make sure they're fully aware of it when they're signing the contract. And it is basically all we do is go into ChatGPT and say, listen, we've got a 5-bed house. It's this sort of style in terms of like, brick slate roof. It's, built in this sort of time period. It's got double glazing windows. What would be a fair usage of gas or electricity based on the current rates for, a 30-day period? And it'll give you a figure. And then we basically use that figure in the contract, which they sign. Anything over and above that, we will send them an invoice and they have to pay it. And what tends to happen with that is it really does control it. And also, the managers of whoever is in the property, the teams higher up, if we ever have a problem or if there is an issue with the heating, they get on the guests, and ultimately over time it really gets them in tow and they start turning the heating off and so on and so forth. So that was something that I learned the hard way, but it's been absolute game changer. So if you feel like contractors don't produce the profit that you expect, like the issue probably isn't the demand of the contractors, it's more than likely the property that you're running. So in the next video, I'm going to explain exactly what type of properties consistently deliver around 2K net profit per month and which ones never will.